Hey, what the actual fuckers, and welcome to WTAF, a This Country podcast. First, he's the man who has just got back from the garage as he has to try and sort his car roof out. He just had 25 pair of Doc Martens crushing his car roof like a Coke can. It's Neil.
Hello, and how apt. I have just got back from the garage.
What, because of Doc Martens crushing your roof?
No,
or
it's just a faulty door lock that I've been waiting to be fixed since way before all this lockdown happened.
All right, but now you've sorted it.
Yeah, and now it's been crushed by the skinheads.
Okay, now Series 3 in the show may have finished, but this episode we have the man who many, including ourselves, would say was the star of the final series. He's back for his third appearance on the podcast, which means we need to send him the match ball after a hat trick of episodes. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the nicest man in show business, Reverend Fiery Francis Seaton himself, Paul Chahidi.
Oh, what an introduction. Thanks, guys. The hat trick. I've done it.
You've done it. We will literally find a football, sign it for you, though that will mean nothing, and send it to you. So you're the very first person we've had on 3 times.
Oh, I'm honoured. I am absolutely honoured. What a pleasure to be back.
It's wonderful. Well, we will start with Series 3 because, like I said in the introduction, I think everybody that we've spoken to in the fan community said that it was your series. So when you got the scripts originally, were you excited by that? Were you daunted by it a little bit? Because it's sort of a lot of the emotional weight, I think, fell on you in this episode.
I was delighted. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's such a gift that you can only dream of, really. So to have, I don't know, writing of that caliber and written for you, because by now, you see, I mean, got to Series 3, we had a special in between all of that as well. You know, Charlie and Daisy and Tom and Simon, we all just know each other so well. They know each of us, the actors, so well. And Charlie and Daisy's writing, it's like, you know, it's like a tailor-made suit. Difference between an ill-fitting off the peg and a beautiful Savile Row suit, whatever that must feel like, because I just like to I've never had one. Anyone listening out there who wants to get me one, that would be very, very welcome. But yeah, I did look at it and go, oh, there's a lot of line learning, and I'm going to sort of crack on with that. But no, in every way, I was like, this is wonderful and such generous writing for the Vicar, and it felt like it had been building on each series. You know, the Vicar, they went deeper with him and with other characters, but particularly the Vicar. And I was just blown away by, again, the quality of the writing. I mean, I don't know how people feel, but I felt like although the previous series and the special were beautifully written, I thought this was the best of the lot because it just went deeper with everyone and kind of plumbed more emotional depths. Yeah.
So Paul, when you first got to the set, was it like you hadn't been away? You all instantly came back as a family?
Yeah, yes, it was. I mean, very much so. We you know, we all like each other. That really, really helps. We're all very at ease with each other and enjoy each other's company, and also respect and enjoy each other's work and rate each other. And you know, there were a few wonderful new faces on board, and then plenty of the team returning who were on Series 1 even, and that just puts you at ease. So, you know, everyone just slots in. You've got a shared vocabulary. You don't have to get to know each other too much. You're just slotting in. You can get things done very quickly because everyone understands what's needed, you know, from the camera crew to sound to the actors, makeup, all of us, you know. It was so it was joyous, you know. Coming back to Northleach, when you say set, it's the town of Northleach, and it just, you know, the old streets, the old venues, the you know, the vicar's office was still there, and you know, the hall next to it, and so it was one of our, oh my goodness, I can't remember exactly when it was. I think it was August or something, but we had the most glorious weather as well, and it was just idyllic. So yes, couldn't have been nicer.
So you were given the task I mean, I can remember when we were speaking about after Michael died, unfortunately passed away. We're thinking, my God, how is the show going to address that? And you were given the task in the show as the vicar to sort of. It's hard to work out exactly how to put it, because it's like you're not announcing it. I suppose you are announcing it to certain people, aren't you? But you're announcing it within the show to the people watching the documentary. That must have been very emotional and hard to get through that one particular scene.
Yes, it was. I mean, there was so much sadness that everyone was carrying, and particularly Daisy and Charlie, because they were so close to Michael. And I think they held a lot of that in order to just get on with the work. It came out more actually afterwards, and we had a Q&A at the BFI just before the launch of Series 3, and Daisy, it was beautiful actually. Daisy was talking about Michael, and she was crying, and and I think finally she had the chance to start processing it and letting it out. But it was a beautiful honouring of Michael's spirit, written by two of his closest friends. So you knew it was authentic, you knew it was respectful, but it was also absolutely true to the show. And it is a cliche to say this, but it is what Michael wanted. We know that. I mean, Michael wanted to be in the show. At one point. He said, "Look, when I'm gone, can my coffin appear? Can we get?" And we were like, "I'm not sure that can happen, Michael, but we're gonna find a way." And they handled it with such delicacy and amazing humour, but just such delicacy and such emotional truth. And they handled it. They dealt with it head on from the word go, which I think was the right way. And it was such a difficult balancing act they achieved, and I can't quite believe how they did it. But they walked that high wire act between honouring him and the seriousness of something that actually happened, and just being absolutely brilliantly funny and true to the show, whilst not being disrespectful to him. And we know that came across because his family were very happy with the way it was dealt with, which was a hugely important thing to all of us. Yes, it was an honour to say those lines particularly. And my memory is it was one of the earliest bits of filming, so quite glad to get that done, because it did feel like a responsibility, but at the same time I felt so glad they asked me and felt deeply privileged. So yeah.
So what was your thoughts, Paul, when you first read the script to that episode? Was it exactly as it was as we saw it?
But pretty much. I mean, gosh, it's a while ago now. Gosh, isn't it? We're coming up to nearly a year since we filmed. I mean, always changes. So we know by now when we get a script for this country that to not get too attached to anything, because whatever's written, we might change even the day before or even on the day. And again, going back to your earlier question, that's one of the beauties of beautiful things about working with such a tight team, is you can do that you can turn on a sixpence, you can do that, it's not a big deal. And give me that, just give me 10 minutes, I'll learn those new lines, we can do a whole scene, we'll riff our way through some of it, we'll come on script for the rest. What was your question again? I've completely lost
when you first read the script to when you first read it to when it was filmed of episode 1, was there much of a change, or was it pretty much there on the page?
I think most of it was there. There was, I think, one or two episodes which we knew were a bit overwritten, were a bit too long, and we knew that they were working frantically away at it while we were filming. And we were having the odd read through of things and just seeing if they worked. So, I mean, I think this one got written much nearer the time of filming than the other series, perhaps. But to be honest, there's always been a script that's delivered for the start of filming, and then masses of changes as we go along, some of which are scripted through scripting and some of which are through improvising. So I don't feel it was a massive change from what we got, but there were changes.
Right. Well, with series 3, I think another thing that we've said all the way through all series and the special as well is that Kerry and Curtin don't seem to have an arc. They just float around and they carry on doing what they do, and you get the feeling that even in 20, 30 years time, they're both still going to be in the village, both still going to be looking at decaying foxes or whatever. They're never going to change. Whereas in this series, the vicar had a definite arc, and I don't think anybody saw the vicar leaving as a thing that was going to happen. We had all these different theories of what was going to happen. Were you happy that there was a bit of an ending to the vicar story?
Yeah, I was. It was a beautiful ending, and something needed to happen, but I don't think it could have ended with Kerry and Curtin leaving the village, because that just wouldn't have been true. It wouldn't have been true to the characters, and it felt right that the vicar would move along. I mean, I know what you mean when you're talking about their characters, but actually, I think they did have an arc and they did change. It's just that they stayed in the village.
Right. Okay.
So well, in that, I think they matured, even within their own parameters. Kerry and Curtin learnt to be, having gone from being absolutely the children to the vicar father figure, they were kind of the parental figures at the end. They were giving him advice. They had matured enough to go to him and come full circle and say, you've got to go, don't you? And it was beautiful that they did that, because you don't expect that.
No.
You expect them fully to just follow their arc of, well, yeah, he's a bald snake, he's an evil psychopath who's trying to control us all. He's a puppet master. But that twist was so beautiful. So there was I would say there was an arc for them, but absolutely staying in the village.
Yeah.
So I mean, I know it's not going to happen, but it would be fascinating to see how they are 5 years on in the village. You can imagine them, and what they're getting up to, but yeah, it was the right thing to do, and it was a kind of good full stop to the end of this whole story.
One of the questions I wanted to ask you, Paul, after watching this series was in the driving lesson, episode 2. You're actually driving the car around North Lynch whilst acting. How hard is that?
Well, luckily, I haven't got my driving gloves on. I'm a fairly handy driver here. I don't want to get all Top Gear about it. No, it was quite an old Volvo on that series. I was much happier with the Golf, if I'm honest. She was a beautiful little move of the Golf. But no, I think you may know the saga. On the day we were supposed to start filming that whole episode, the Volvo arrived, and it's all about learning how to drive. And the Volvo we got was an automatic, not a stick shift, and it'd come all the way from Essex. So we thought, we were screwed. The whole day was going to be wasted. But somehow they got another Volvo that looked similar enough that was stick shift by the end of the day, and we just filmed certain bits, the exteriors on the automatic. But it's fine. There are some sort of hairy moments where you're kind of having to do dialogue. It's when you go down the country lanes. The town is fine, because that's easily negotiable. But you go down the narrow country lanes, and you started a scene, and it's suddenly there's a huge lorry that no one expected coming the other way, and you've got to keep talking. It's like spinning the plate, and you've got to kind of sort of, there might be a funny bit or an emotional bit coming up. You just got to keep going. I mean, the biggest problem with filming inside the car was getting the giggles, because I get giggly at the best time with Charlie and Daisy, and Charlie, it was in some of the outtakes, when he was driving and pretending to lose control, I was just absolutely wetting myself. But in answer to your question, no, I was just about okay. I had some practice with it, so it was okay.
There's other things about Series 3 I want to talk about, but you talk about the bloopers, and we've said it hundreds of times on this episode, on this podcast, that we love bloopers. And so we were so happy when finally there were some This Country bloopers. I'm assuming that isn't all of the ones that would have happened in Series 3, but the one where you're at the door and Curtin is, he can see you through, that's one that seems to me that took a long time to get over, that one.
That, I tell you the story behind that. That was my last day of filming, and it was one of the last days of filming. And it was such a simple scene. I mean, how hard can it be to just open the door? And it's the first time I did it, Charlie went, and then I went, I thought, oh, we're in trouble here. And we had to get it done. It was my final day.
Yeah.
And it was also, as it happened, by the end of that morning, the day that Simon Mayhew Archer, the producer, got the call from his wife that her waters had broken and she'd gone to hospital, and he hot-tailed it down to London, left early, and to be at the birth of his son.
Right.
But that door scene is just, well, it was starting to get out of control, and there's a point at which it goes from being funny to actually being quite scary, because you feel like you have no control or self-discipline whatsoever, and some kind of laughing demon has taken over, and you'll never get anything done. But we just about reined it in. I mean, only just. But that was just one of many. I mean, the blooper reel is probably about a 20th of the number of scenes that were just lost to uncontrollable giggling. I mean, there was one day, I mean, it was I'd say the hardest day of all was with Big Mandy in the book club scene, where she just kicks off, and the scenes where I had to sit with her and while she recounts her stories that she's written herself. It just had us all in stitches. And at one point I had Ashley Maguire, such a brilliant actress, who plays Big Mandy. In between takes, we were all giggling, and loads of her stuff was directed at me. And so everyone else got off really lightly, and they were giggling off camera while filming was happening. And I had to keep a straight face because I was receiving, and the camera was on me, I was receiving all this stuff and listening. And in between takes, I said, Ash, I don't think I can do this. You're just too funny. I said, look, you're staring at me, you know, whenever I'm speaking with this kind of stone cold killer stare. And I said, well, what are you thinking? What's going through your brain as Big Mandy? And she said, well, Big Mandy just hates you for being a vicar. That was it. I was like, yeah, that sounds like Big Mandy. She just hates you for being a vicar.
That's her motivation.
Yeah, that didn't help. It just made me laugh even more. But yes, it's always that. I mean, you've got to watch it because you've got to get it done. But it was just joyous. And even Celeste, Celeste Strings, she never goes. She was going as well. So who plays Kaylee? Yes, but much fun.
So do you have a process of getting over that, or is it just a fact of just taking some deep breaths and trying to just calm yourself?
I punch myself in the face. I literally, you do. I've done it before. I've literally slapped myself going, come on, like you imagine people do in sense of humor. But no, you just take a deep breath, and you have to. And Tom is brilliant. Tom George, director, is brilliant. It's just going, okay, it's fine. It's good. He never gets loses temper because he goes as well. But he'll just say, let's take a moment. It's fine. If you laugh, you laugh. It's fine. As soon as someone says, if you laugh, you laugh, and it's all fine, it starts to subside. It's when you feel like I mustn't laugh, and it can just get worse, like a tsunami of laughter. But you just deep breaths, and when the camera's not on you, you just take your moments. I just can't. Whenever I could in those book club scenes, if it didn't look weird, I just wouldn't look at Ashley because I couldn't look at her. She would just set me off. And she was staring at me the whole time. It's like a psychopath. It's brilliant.
Paul, as an actor then, I mean, when you're on stage and you corpse like that, how do you recover then?
Well, that's really hard. Do you know, I mean, until I started this country, I was very rarely the one who corpsed, and I don't corpse that much on stage, although I do enjoy a laugh and stuff. I usually am the one who controls it very well, and other people go. Yes, but it did happen. I mean, I'd hate for anyone to think I was totally unprofessional. I do get through performances and without any corpsing, but there have been one or two occasions where I remember early in my career, I did a production of the Arabian Nights, and it was in the round. So all around us, the audience, very close quarters at the Young Vic, and a group of us just got the giggles. There were only 6 of us in the cast, and it was just horrendous. And again, you have to think of something really unfunny or grim or sad or anything at all to just get you out of the giggle zone.
It's one of the hardest things. As myself and Pav will,
I bet you have a few.
Yeah,
we've tried. Yeah, when we tried recording jingles, there'll be something that will be just, and it's not funny. It's not something that's funny that makes you laugh. I think that's the problem. Yeah. But then it sticks in your head, and like the video recorder. Kids, look on Google for a video recorder. It replays it in your head over and over again, and then that's it. There's nothing you can do. You're just stuffed. Yeah, it's a very, very strange phenomenon. We actually finally got to meet you in the flesh in the summer of last year at the This Country charity football match.
Yeah.
Which, again, was another one of those amazing days that just like...
it was great, wasn't it?
It was fantastic. You were the manager of the This Country team.
Yes.
One of the greatest photographs I've ever seen is when you ran onto the pitch remonstrating with the referee about one of his decisions. I think it's up on our website. You've got to find it. It's a fantastic photo. How was that for you for that day? Because it was a great day. It really was.
Oh, it was a great day, and it was brilliant to raise money for charity, and great to see all the gang. And what a turnout from people. And, remembering Michael at the match as well was beautiful. And it was absolutely bonkers. And I know very little about football. I mean, I'm one of the few actors I know who doesn't really follow football. So I literally had to ask people like Callum, who's our AD, assistant director, and ask him what would a manager do at this point. I mean, I was all set to run out and shout at people, but I had to say, what are the things managers shout to their team? He gave me a few hints, so I took that and ran with it. But it was great, and it was great to meet so many of the fans. And there is so much. It's blown over by the the love for the show from people. It really is a passion people have for it. So it's wonderful.
Mm.
Absolutely fantastic. So when you have you watched the series, Paul, yourself?
I have I tell you what, I saw some rough cuts because I needed to, because we were going to do some odd days of filming before it got finally edited. And then I was in America filming when it came out, and then when I got back, I watched it over sort of 2 nights. It can sometimes take me a while to come around to watching things I'm in. I mean, partly because I really don't like seeing my ugly mug on the screen. I mean, honestly, I find it still fine. I'm quite self-conscious seeing myself, and all I can think about is, is that a good choice? Is that a good choice? But I'm gradually getting better at that. But I watched it probably about a couple of months after it came out here. Or the last episode came out. And it was so nice to watch the finished versions, because I'd seen something that was not the same. And it was so interesting to see, because Tom and Simon come in and shape it with Charlie and Daisy at the end with the editing process. It's so crucial. And to see what they'd left out, what they put in, and particularly the whole ending, how they were going to end it, because we had a number of different versions of the final scene. I can't remember exactly what they were, but some were a bit more, I don't want to say sentimental, but compared to what they finally went with, they were a bit a bit more touchy-feely, whereas the ending was a bit more like, yeah, let's go then, let's move on, whatever, let's not dwell on this and make it a bigger thing than it is. And so it was lovely seeing it.
I was going to ask, Paul, did you have a favourite episode that you watched rather than appeared in?
I'm trying to think. From that final series, you mean?
Yeah.
I did love the final episode. It's so hard. It's like, how do you choose? The writing's just sublime. It really is. And so even the ones I was in, I was going, oh, really, that writing is amazing. And I loved so much. I mean, I love watching. I can't pick out a certain episode actually, but I do love the kind of denouement of the whole thing in the final episode. And I just love watching the other actors, Ashley and Trevor, and it's just all of them. They're just such wonderful actors in those scenes with such brilliant writing. But I like any. I mean, it's in all the episodes, but I particularly like the scenes where there is a kind of an emotional center to it, and that comes out more. So I suppose the final one is the big one for that, because there's so much pent up frustration and anger and fear in all the characters, and then it all comes out and resolves itself.
Yeah. It's funny you say about pent up anger, because in all the series, it's the lovely Reverend Francis Seaton has always got that little bit of anger bubbling away, whether he's having a go at a traffic warden, or he's shouting at Len, or he's having a go at June in the last couple of episodes. He's always got that little bit of fire that you feel that as nice as he is, there is, especially in the episode in the driving lesson episode when he starts talking about his dad, there's a lot there to unpack. Do you wish that maybe that had been unpacked a little bit more, or do you think it was just right in what was shown?
I think the time was right, because in the previous two series, it was much more about Daisy and about Kerry and Curtin, and if they were going to explore the character of the vicar more, it needed to wait till that final series. And what you had references to in previous series, they expanded on brilliantly. So he talks about having a temper and being a bit of a hothead on the hockey pitch or whatever it was. He was
netball court.
The netball court. Sorry, and then they take that and have that beautiful scene in the car where he talks about his kind of abusive father who bullied him, and a lot is left unsaid, even though he says a lot in that speech about his childhood. And then what's very true to life is Reverend Francis is, yes, he is a kind, nice, decent, patient man, but as with all people who are trying to be nice, and to some extent, although he does ask difficult questions of people, but a lot of the time he's trying to please everyone. And as in real life, people who please or try to please all the time do it at a cost to themselves, because they never really say what they actually feel, because they're suppressing it to try and help the other people. And that comes out at some point sooner or later in human beings. So it's very true to life. And he eventually reaches his breaking point with June, and it had to be June, didn't it?
And so he should, because she's a terrible woman. Yeah. She is a terrible woman.
She did have it coming. I mean,
she absolutely scuffage on a sprinkler hose. I mean, really, it's ridiculous. Yeah. I will say my favorite scene in all of series 3 is in Driving Lesson, when Reverend Seaton's talking about his jacket with the shoulder pads. And you go through all this very emotional, and it's obviously something that's deep inside that has hurt you for years and years. And then Kerry turns around and goes, Well, but he didn't hit you, did he? And, all he did was take the piss out of your jacket. And then you say, well, there were other times. And that is heartbreaking, because you go from you, pouring your heart out, Kerry then saying, well, he didn't really do anything to you, did he? Just took the piss out of your fashion. And then that is such a gut-wrenching line when you say, no, and beautifully delivered, I must say.
Oh, well, thank you. That was improvised, actually. We, that there were other times thing, but it wouldn't have come if I hadn't had all the building blocks of that amazing speech.
Yeah.
But we'd said enough by that stage for the character. But when she said that, I can't remember if Daisy's line was also potentially. I think that would have been improvised too, and my response was also improvised. But we needed to kind of move on to the next thing. But what I felt was, what he described his father doing was just the tip of an iceberg of some kind. And as far as he was prepared to go in telling them, because it's too painful. But it's so true to life, though. I think we all have those instances where we've been deeply hurt, and it often goes back to our childhood, because that's when we're most vulnerable. And when it's a parent who's done it, it never leaves you that, and you hide it as an adult, but it's always there, and it comes out in moments in life when you're feeling vulnerable again. And it's funny, I think where we are now with the lockdown and everything, everyone's feeling really vulnerable, and stuff is coming out that you don't show people, and you perhaps keep hidden from yourself, you stuff that has been long suppressed. And I think that's a very strange and difficult time for people. It's also a chance to actually, something good might come out of it on a personal level. But I thought the writing was so beautiful there, and so true, that someone as nice as him is that way because he wants to please, but also because he is wanting to get away from some deep-seated hurt.
Yeah,
by focusing on other people rather than himself. And they are strangely wise, aren't they? They say the trouble with you, Vicar, is you're always thinking of other people. You never think about yourself. They're saying that to get him to do something other than going.
Sorry, excuse me a sec. I'm recording.
Sorry, I want to get my scooter out.
Right, well,
we can pause.
I'm talking to Rev Seaton. Don't you realise I'm talking to a man of the cloth?
Sorry.
You should keep that in. That is a sign of the times. But thank goodness we don't have to be polished.
It's my 25-year-old daughter wanting to get her scooter, kid's scooter, out of the shed. That's what she wants. That's where we are in this lockdown. I know. And I think because she did that, I may well keep that in. I apologise. You were in mid-flow.
Not at all. No, but I think just say that is very true to life, what they've written, and it was so lovely to be able to play with that in the script.
Yeah. So how do you feel Reverend Seaton will do in Bristol? Well,
the needle exchange.
Exactly. The thing, we did feel that maybe he was a little bit naive, and again, heartbreaking, because he felt that it was like he wasn't ready for it, when I think everybody knows that he is. How do you think he's going to do in Bristol? I
think he is initially going to struggle, but I think he is so winning that he will survive, and he will find a way of thriving there. I dread to think, though, what those Bristol gangsters, to use and what the what is it, Bristol Goodfellas? I don't know what the phrase was that Curtin used. Wise guys. What they're going to do, because the level of advantage taking that will go on there, I think, will be on another level altogether. But I like to think he'll be all right, and he will have a support network. He may be a bit out of his depth for the first year or so there.
You know what? I think after seeing the way he treated Curtin when Curtin ran up behind him on the bridge at the railway, I think he's going to be fine. I don't think nobody's going to want to come nowhere near him, because he knows how to look after himself. There was some
Aikido, a few Aikido moves.
There were some moves there. Curtin was on his ass. He had no chance. I don't think the vicar's got any problems there. I really don't.
I would love to see it as a sitcom itself. I think that would be a perfect comedy.
Well, it's interesting. I listened to your episode with Simon, and I tend to agree with him that it would just be Rev in some ways, because I feel like I mean, I think he's a wonderful character. I'm sure he could survive in some form, but I just don't think it would be anywhere near as good without Kerry and Curtin there. And I feel like the vicar character in that kind of context has been explored before without a Kerry and Curtin in Rev. But just on a personal level, I would be curious to see how he was doing in Bristol.
Absolutely.
But that's kind of you to say that, because that's a compliment. So I'll take that.
I mean, Daisy and Charlie have both said that, you know, they're not going to shut the door completely on this country. Do you think it'd be a better thing to maybe, like you say, 5-10 years down the line, maybe the vicar goes back to the village just to see what they're doing? I mean, I'm sure you'd be up for that, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you know, it made me laugh because at one point after the series went out, it was, nope, that's it, it's over, that is it. Then I sort of look on Twitter or something a month or so later, and Daisy's gone and said, no, I think we'll definitely do a special. Who knows? Fabo, anything could happen. I think, you know, I think if they were going to do something, the obvious choice would be a special, because you could either take it, you know, chronologically and revisit the vicar coming back to the village after he's left, or you could do pre him leaving. You could do a Christmas special or something like that, and that would be fun to do. I mean, I think we'd all be up for that. But in general terms, I think it was a really good, bold, strong decision to end it on 3 series. I mean, you look at some of those programs that you love, like The Office and Fawlty Towers and all that. They made the right decision. I'm sure there were voices saying, come on, this could run and let's do it. It's like, no, let's end it on a high, and let's leave it where it is, and let's not stretch credibility. I think the problem is, how much stuff can you have if it's just in the village? The answer is probably it could go on, but it might lose its sheen, and I think that would be a pity. That would be a pity.
Completely agree with that. Completely agree.
I mean, well, again, one of the things I wanted to thank you for as well was that we got to speak to Michael Price from The Simpsons because of you. It was indirectly.
I love that episode.
Indirectly, and the fact
what a nice guy.
Oh, what a lovely guy!
Fascinating episode as well, because I learned so much about the writing process there, and I've always been fascinated to know, you know, why is it they go for team writing like that? Obviously got more money and stuff, but you know, that is absolutely what they aim for, is big teams of writers, and we just don't tend to do that.
No.
And it was fascinating hearing him say that. And yes, unlikely connections between me and Michael Price, you know, via Shakespeare on Broadway. I mean, of all, me playing a woman in an almost Shakespeare production, who'd have thought it? And we've just stayed in touch on and off. And
I feel now it's just a phone call, and all of a sudden we'll be hearing your voice. Imagine Reverend Lovejoy, Francis Seaton, maybe doing something to the congregation together. I think that would be amazing. Yeah, so good.
One can but dream.
It would be fantastic. It really would.
Wouldn't it just?
Yeah.
What have you been filming on before the lockdown came through, Paul?
Well, so yeah, that was, and it's still very much, you know, it's in suspension, but the hope is I'll return to it. It's a sitcom called Chad for an American network out there, and I auditioned for it years ago for a pilot for it with Fox Network, so Fox Studios, 21st Century Fox as it's called. It got made, pilot. It didn't get picked up for a series after a lot of umming and ahhing over a year. Then it went quiet, and then 2 years after that, I got a call from the creator, who's this brilliant actress and comedian called Naseem Pedrad, who's was a regular on Saturday Night Live, if you know Saturday Night Live, and in America. And she had written and created this series called Chad about a 15-year-old Iranian American boy, and his attempts to fit in, and the agonies of growing up in America, or just being a 15-year-old person. And it just so happened that his family are Iranian American. I'm half Iranian on my dad's side, and it was sort of looking at how he was trying to fit in by denying his Iranian heritage to some extent, but then also kind of how he negotiated that relationship. It's just very funny writing, quite similar in places in terms of, a little bit of improvising to how we worked on This Country and Death of Stalin, so we'd have it absolutely scripted and then we'd improvise a bit. And a wonderful cast of characters. We were filming in Portland, in Oregon, where they do a show called Portlandia and various other things. And we got to, I think the whole thing was due to be 10 episodes. We got to 6 episodes and have filmed it. And then I got a call on a Friday saying, we've halted filming, and it was happening all across America, but it took a while before they made a decision on ours. And on the Friday I got the news, on a Saturday I was on a plane back. So it's all very strange. But they built the set, they've got the studios, it's all written, they've done 6 out of 10. So one hopes and that's a big question, when filming can we start, that we might pick up where we left off, which I'm a very lucky person to have that as a potential thing, even because I have many colleagues and friends who have nothing, and particularly friends and colleagues who were in theatre jobs or derived most of their income from theatre work, and they're wondering when on earth they'll ever be able to resume that. So strange times all round. So, you go from being very immersed in, as we all were, in our jobs and our work and everything, to this, whatever this is, whatever we want to call this now.
that must have been the strangest airplane flight on that Saturday, because did you know the reason? I mean, obviously at that time you knew about the coronavirus, and so that flight must have been really, really strange. Was it very nerve-wracking? Oh, right, okay.
No, by then the full fear had not. People were just starting to go, should we wear masks? Should we keep a distance from? And it wasn't quite at the full, you must do this message from the government of social distancing. But the plane was unusually empty, which was a relief. And it was very odd, just very odd, to go from being fully immersed in work in this foreign country, miles from home, to being on a plane back. I was hugely relieved, I have to say, because my worst case scenario would, at that point, we didn't know what was going to happen. Trump was closing down flights to and from the country bit by bit at that point, and it looked like at one point I might not be allowed out. So my nightmare scenario was being stuck in Portland, which, don't get me wrong, is a beautiful, brilliant place. I don't want to be on my own, miles from my wife and child, with all this going on. And so I was very glad to be getting home. But it was very strange, and it continues to be very strange. But one adapts, one sort of, I don't want to use the word normal, because nothing is normal, but one kind of gets used to it to some extent, although one doesn't want to get too used to it, because you want to remember what you want to be aiming for when it's all over. But yes, it was very odd, but very, very glad when I walked through the front door back home.
Strange has become the new normal, hasn't it?
Yes, it has,
really
on
has.
every level. Yeah.
Have you managed to use the lockdown, Paul, to do anything creative yourself, write or a bit?
No, I feel. I mean, I do feel quite strongly, if anyone's doing something creative and getting some good things out of this, then I'm really pleased for them. I mean, I've been doing bits and pieces of things. I did a small playlet for this series of plays on BBC4 called Unprecedented, which I think is still going, which was commissioned by Headlong Theatre Company and with the BBC in response to the coronavirus crisis pandemic. And so I had a little bit of work with that. I've done some sort of play readings for people, script readings, and things like that. The odd podcast that I'm doing with you. But really, my time has been taken up with what I very loosely call homeschooling our son, and just just keeping everything ticking on the home front with my wife, who's been amazing. I do feel strongly, though. Great, if you're coming out with something creative from this period, fine. But if you're not, that is more than fine. And I just think one shouldn't have one more thing to beat oneself up about. And it's like with the homeschooling. I feel like I'm failing on every level, but we do our best. We do our best as parents. We do our best as people. And that is enough. As we decided early on, my wife and I, that, our son's arithmetic might slip a bit, or his reading might slip a bit. If it doesn't, that's great. But if whatever happens, that doesn't really matter. As long as he's safe, as long as he's healthy, as long as he's loved, nothing else matters. And it's kind of the same about getting through this period the best you can, and that is enough. And not to feel you ought to achieve anything from this, because I think there is enough stuff going on in the world and day to day for everyone without one beating oneself up about not achieving things. But in answer to your question, I've been lucky. I've had a few approaches for things, and I've done the odd things. And talking to people like this is one to people like you is wonderful. I'm doing this, but I'm not writing anything at the moment. Although a couple of friends have said I should maybe have a go with it. But kind of like everyone, just getting through day by day. I find it very hard to deal in units of longer than a day, or perhaps maximum a week. And if we get through one day with no major upsets, then that's a win. Even though weekends are kind of meaningless, we get to the weekend, that's great. We've done it. We've done another week. And it's kind of being kind to yourself, isn't it? Because the work, I hope, will come one day. It will come again. And one just tries to stay on top of things as best one can.
Yeah,
wise words indeed.
I think as long as you can keep your mental health just over that line to the positive rather than negative, every day's a win. I think every day's a win.
I agree.
Yeah. Before we let you go, I did want to ask you about the American remake of This Country.
Yes.
What do you think about that, and that your part is going to be taken over by Sean William Scott?
Well, he's a good-looking bastard, isn't he?
Well, I'm
delighted.
I feel that they looked to find someone that was like your equal, and they said, "Well, it's Sean William Scott, obviously."
The one mistake they've made with casting him is he's only got one chin. You've got to have a double chin if you're the Vic. No, in all seriousness, I am fascinated to see. I think it's look. If you'd asked me this before The American Office had come out, I'd have said, this is probably a bad idea. It'll never work. But The American Office, and to some extent Shameless, but particularly The American Office, has proved that things can work.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, there are other series that made the trip over the Atlantic and didn't. But there are similarities in feel to The Office, and I can see it working in a small rural American town. And I will just be interested to see which way they go with that. I don't know much about the actors involved, but I'm sure they're fantastic, and they'll have scoured the country to get them. And I hope they managed to resume, because I presume they didn't. They either started and stopped in the middle, or they didn't start.
Yeah, I don't know for definite whether they've finished the pilot, but I would assume, like you say, once everything sort of gets, in inverted commas, normal, they will pick it back up again. Yeah.
Well, and it's fascinating because they've got Paul Feig on board as a producer and director, and of course he did many things, but not least of which was The Office, episodes of the American version of The Office.
Some of the best episodes as well, I would say.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I am. So in lockdown, I've been watching stuff, as you do when I've got free time. Once the boy's gone to bed, my wife and I are watching things, and sometimes we're watching new stuff, and sometimes we're going back to stuff that everyone else has watched and we haven't. And one of those is currently The American Office. So I'm on series 4,
right?
And I cannot believe I didn't watch it until now, and I am blown away by how good it is. You just think, if Paul Feig is behind some of those, and as you're saying, some of the best episodes, then it's in good hands. And I think Charlie and Daisy are involved to some extent as executive producers on some level. So I wish them well, and I'm fascinated to see the American version. And it, again, going back to Michael Price, if it's picked up for series, then they'll probably have a writer's room with loads of writers. They may go for 10 episodes, may do the classic 22 per series, and they could run and run. You know, the beauty of the American Office, because it's not fair to compare perhaps the American with the British Office. The British Office was such a beautifully formed, short-lived gem, 3 series and moved on. But because it was 3 series, it couldn't explore the characters as fully for as long as the American one. And how they managed to, I don't know how many they did in America. Is it 12, 10?
9 series it was.
9. with
like 20 odd episodes in each.
How they managed to sustain the quality. I mean, I'm only halfway through, but everyone tells me the quality is just so high throughout. Is extraordinary. And I do wonder whether it's something to do with the writer's room and so many different fresh voices coming to write on the same series. But it'll be a wonderful thing. I wish it every success.
I think it's definitely going to be interesting. I do hope it falls in the American Office and not the in-betweeners or IT crowd of the American versions. Yeah. I really do.
I think they have to, as with The Office, they have to retain some of the awkwardness and some of the kind of bleakness of it. The American Office didn't go as bleak as the British Office, but it really captured some of the awkwardness. And, so the version of Kerry and Curtin, the US version of Kerry and Curtin, they can be as badly behaved as you like and as obnoxious as you like, but you have to find that vulnerability and that warm heart to them, but without being sentimental, which is the great skill of what Charlie and Daisy have done. It's such a tightrope walk. But if anyone can do it, it's that team there. And they will have Charlie and Daisy on board to advise them, I'm sure. So fascinating to see what will happen with that. I just want filming to start in general. It seems like when will that happen? But it will happen. We have to have hope, don't we? We have to have hope.
Indeed, we do.
There's one thing I would like Seaton to do, and I still think there's time for it, is the Pause for Thought on BBC Radio 2.
Yes, is that it's like Thought for the Day, isn't it? But Pause for Thought. Yeah, I'd love to do one of those. If someone wants me to do that, I'd love to do that. Because I think on Radio 4, they've had various people from our industry, actors and writers and composers and things like that, talking about the things they were going to be doing or reading a poem or, it would be great. Francis Seaton would be a good character to have on Pause for Thought. Yeah.
Because before we do go, sorry, I'm keeping you here again, but
it's a joy. I don't want to go. It's
fine. When Series 3 came out, there was the whole thing on Twitter about there was you and the sexy Reverend from Fleabag, and it was like which one would you have? How did that feel that you were being put on that pedestal?
Well, did you see the brilliant film they cut, the mashup of Fleabag and This Country?
Oh no, I haven't seen that.
You haven't seen that?
I need to look. I need to find that.
You and Neil have got to see that.
I need to find that.
Basically, they have cleverly edited bits of Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Fleabag talking about the priest, and then cutting to me saying things from various episodes as Francis Seaton, and it looks like they've been having an affair, and it's brilliantly done. And we had always had this joke once Andrew Scott did his amazing performance as the hot priest in Fleabag, but the hot priest. I am the original hot priest. And we were saying we must do a little spoof bit of filming if we find the time when we were actually filming, to sort of show me having an argument in the corner, getting really riled about Andrew Scott and Fleabag, and and me, Paul Chahidi, the actor, having that with Tom George perhaps, and getting really, really upset about it. But this was just a lovely thing. So yeah, I've enjoyed all that. Yes,
that's what made me Photoshop the Revengers when I did that.
I love that.
Yeah, I thought, well, you have to be Tony Stark, you have to be Iron Man, because you're the number one. But I just loved all that. I thought that was fantastic. I really did. Paul, thank you so much for giving us your time again.
Such a pleasure, always is.
I've said this to Daisy and Charlie, and I've said this to Tom and to Simon, but also to yourself. I want to thank you really from the bottom of all of our hearts for the last 3 series and the special. We know from the fan community how much it means to everybody, the work that you did and the performances that you put in. And for all of us, it's not just a show. It's not only a show. It's something that everybody dearly, dearly loves. And it's because of yourself and your performances and the fact that you are just... We've said it to Linny, every guest that we've had on this podcast, that you are one of the nicest people that we have ever met in our lives. Absolutely. So from the bottom of our heart, we just want to say thank you for everything that you've done from episode 1 up to the final episode of series 3. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Firstly, that's just so sweet of you, and very, very much appreciated. And but also thank you for being such supporters of the show from day one and of all of our work, because that means a lot. And by extension, I'd also just like to thank everyone who's followed the show, because it's meant the world to us, and we do notice it, and it does mean something to us. It means an awful lot. And but you two have been there from the start and have been such ardent supporters of us all, and that means a lot to me. So thank you.
Well, thank you again, Paul.
The least we could do.
And of course, the football will be in the post.
Lovely. I'd like to see how long that takes to get here. We've been getting stuff from December in the post. It's weird. I don't know what's going on.
And I'm sure this time next year there'll be a BAFTA in the post for you as well, Paul.
I don't know about that, but look, we'll just as the line goes, we'll always have Paris. We'll always have North Leach.
We'll always have North Leach. Paul, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Please stay safe. And just good luck with everything in the future. Love to your family, and just please stay safe.
Thank you, and love to you two and your families.
Indeed.
Thanks for asking me on again.
No problem. Thank you, mate. Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
There it goes. There goes the wonderful Reverend Seaton. Paul Chahidi. Bless his heart.
And made us feel all relaxed. It's a voice you could listen to for hours, isn't it?
I could listen to so many audiobooks with that man. I really could.
Absolutely.
So do you want to do your bits, Neil?
Let's do it. You can find us on all the social media sites under WTAF This Country. You can email us at WTAFthiscountry@hotmail.com if you want to ask us any questions, or just drop us a line, please. Feel free to do so. And we have a website that you can click onto for all your This Country goodies and needs at WTAFpodcast.com.
And you can get T-shirts like this, less of the effing and jeffing, from that website. And you can also come and be a Patreon bozo if you go to patreon.com/WTAF. There are different tiers, different rewards for different prices. Just go there. All the information is there. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. Thank you, just everybody. Please stay safe, everybody. Neil, stay safe.
Oh, I'll do my best, sir.
Carry on delivering your goods.
Oh, I will.
And we will see you next time for another WTAF. So go and get plumbed, you fuckers.